Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. Match day 5 in the UEFA Champions League started today, and there were 8 games on the docket at the Signal Iduna Park, the Westfalen Stadion. For those of you who are older school, Borussia Dortmund welcomed the challenge of English champions Manchester City. We have highlights.
The sixth meeting between these sides. Dortmund's only success was in the first game here back in December 2012. Those came across. Here comes City with Mahrez. The early ball in. Hummels heads away. Haaland almost got in there. And Hummels needing all of his experience ultimately to thwart him not once but twice. That's a lovely turn from Bellingham. And it runs here for Moukoko. Round the corner for Adeyemi. Gets it back from Bellingham. And puts in Adeyemi. Across it goes. Moukoko, what a chance. What a... It's going to be Foden. Diaz and Ake are very deep in the penalty area. Foden has swung it in. Ake with a header. And unable to keep it down. Bernardo Silva. He spotted the run of Foden. It's going to come to Gundogan, and now for Mahrez. Goes down, penalty. It was clumsy from Emre Can, and Manchester City have a penalty. But now they have the chance to go in front with a penalty kick. Riyad Mahrez scored from the spot in the first leg of the Champions League quarter-final between the sides back in April 2021. But he doesn't score this time. Bernardo Silva. Alvarez just lost his footing. Mahrez looking to collect. He has found Alvarez. Good hit. And down for Foden. And his touch is too heavy. Pushed away by Kobel. Out as far as Bernardo Silva. Pressure still on here. Foden. Rodri. Gundogan is in there. Headed away by Hazard. Cleared as far as Mahrez. Dortmund with everybody behind the ball. That has been the game plan from the off. They have looked to cause problems on the counter. They've got the point that they needed. Yeah, real stunning development there. Of the 8 games played today, only one ended 0-0, and it was the one between Dortmund and Manchester City. Who would have thought that? Well, at the Red Bull Arena, the Austrian champions RB Salzburg, they hosted England's Chelsea.
Jorginho with a teasing ball, which Bernardo was almost given straight to Kai Havertz, who's gone down after a challenge with Kern. And the referee now is calling for a stretcher to look at the goalkeeper. Actually did well to recover. He certainly took the ball rather than the man. Havertz has made a near post run. There was a collision between 2 players. It comes back to Kovacic. What a brilliant finish from Mateo Kovacic.
Havertz colliding with Pavlovic, and then the deflection as Verba tried to get it clear, fell straight to Kovacic, and there was zero hesitation from the Croatian. Swept it forward with his left foot.
Chalobah, good run by Gallagher. Verba didn't know where he was. Here's Kai Havertz, and Kern almost spilt it. Sukic spotted Kiergaard. This is a chance for an equaliser, which he doesn't take. And another route through the Salzburg defence. Pulisic trying to do just that into Havertz. Havertz trying from range. Oh, what a goal! Lovely ball set back to him. But that is a sublime effort. Curling it away into the top corner. Šeško. But Balaga's turn now to produce a stunning save. And there is the full-time whistle. Things change quickly these days.
Yeah, so 2-1 to Chelsea in the end. Kyle Havertz with a beauty from distance to give Graham Potter's men lift off in the game. Let's just take the Salzburg goal for completeness. We have that for you. We didn't include it in the highlights package just now. We were saving it for extra. So 1-0, and then the 48th minute, Salzburg on the break, catching Chelsea in the transition out of position. Look at Cucurella at central defense. He's a left back. And because of the way the Chelsea defense was scrambled, Adamo raced through to score from a central position. Excellent counter-attack by Salzburg. And yeah, Chelsea disorganized and running back to field places men in foreign positions on the pitch, and they couldn't defend it. That's how Salzburg got parity, but they would go on to lose the game. Joining us now is the former TNT international, Brent Sancho. Brent was working out with me today on the Champions League preview and highlights show. Good to see you so quick, Brent. Let's start with the game at the Signal Iduna Park, the Westfalen Stadion. Brent, if I had bet you good money, and I know you're a man who likes a good wager, if I had bet you that Dortmund would have drawn 0-0 with City in Germany, you'd have said, George, you're my good friend, I'm not going to take your money, because effectively you're giving me free money if that is the bet.
No, you're spot on. You expected, of course, end-to-end football. You expected goal-scoring opportunities and goals. But that didn't happen today. And I think a lot of it was down to the fact that both teams cancelled each other out tactically. And the approach, Dortmund, of course, did everything in their power to frustrate City and, of course, play on the counter-attack. And Manchester City, without Kevin De Bruyne from the start, looked very blunt in attack and struggled to get in behind Dortmund's defense. So, yeah, as much as the game, the height, the paperwork would suggest that this would have been a goal fest, it was nothing like that. The actual game, it was more of a bit of a snowfest.
Yeah, we've seen youngsters take this stage by storm, the Champions League. I mean, the list of youngsters who've done great things in this competition, it's a long list. Just today we were talking about Jude Bellingham and how he was poised to join Erling Haaland as the only teenagers to have scored in 5 consecutive Champions League games. That didn't happen today, so the streak stays at 4 for Bellingham, 5 for Haaland. I say that to mention a 17-year-old who started up front for Dortmund, Yusufa Moukoko, who missed a glorious chance in the first half from a square ball that caught the City defense flat-footed. And it is tempting, this is the play in the 36th minute, Adeyemi runs off the back of Cancelo. Cancelo, there was a lot of space behind him today, and you'd expect your striker to finish that. But you can criticize him, Brent, but then when you remember that this is a 17-year-old young man, you may be tempted to cut him some slack.
Yeah, certainly cut him some slack. I'm happy that he got into the box. Of course, the finish needed a bit more a sure side of his left foot. I think he sliced at it a bit. It was one of those gilt-edge opportunities, but it was arguably the best chance of the game for Dortmund. And when you look at Dortmund's attack, Reina, etc., it is filled and littered with young players. Of course, Haaland coming from that school. We mentioned Jude Bellingham and what he's been able to do at Dortmund, and the goal scoring, of course, streak that he's in, and the form that he's in as well. And you can only tip your hats to Dortmund and what they've been doing over the last 10 years or so as it relates to the development of players and selling them on. I think, George, we would find it very, very difficult to find any other team in world football that develops young talent the way that Dortmund does. Of course, it reminds us of the Ajax of yesteryear. Dortmund is certainly the place where young players go to develop and move on.
Here, speaking about difficult, I have a difficulty understanding why Manchester City has failed to convert so many penalties. Mahrez missed a penalty today, and of course research shows that under Pep Guardiola, the time that he has been at the helm, they've missed 25 out of their 80 penalties, and that's, you know, the most amount among any team playing for such a time.
Look, I was surprised that Mahrez picked the ball up, because as you remember, he missed a penalty kick not too long ago.
Against Copenhagen in the previous round.
Yes, correct. And you know, what is strange, and I have my theory as it relates to Man City, normally when a team has so many talented players, I can bet you many of them are knocking on the door to kick penalties. So, you know, when you go up, you have at least 1 or 2 opportunities because someone else wants to do it. You've got, of course, you've got Haaland, you've got De Bruyne, Gundogan, you know, Silva. We could go through a list of players that probably have the acumen to take penalties. And I think for sure, for me, that pressure is there within the group. But that being said, I'm very sure that we will not see Riyad Mahrez take a penalty for Man City for a very, very long time. That's for sure.
Well, I hope that's for sure, Brent. What about the 29-year-old Ortega that made his debut for Manchester City? You know, Pep giving him the opportunity today.
I always thought it was a difficult fixture for Man City going into it. I think you have to put context to this game. Obviously, City just needed a point to, of course, stop the group and go ahead into the next phase of game. And they played that way. You know, I listened to Pep's statements after the game. He talked about the tiring fixture that they had, of course, over the weekend. And he may feel there's some tired legs within the squad. You're going through a very busy period for the Premiership teams, of course, in the build-up to the World Cup. And it's a very long, jammed footballing schedule. So I can understand the type of performance. I can understand the situation that Man City is. I'm very sure if you told Pep coming into this game, if he would take the point, he probably would have bitten your hand off. And that's exactly what transpired. It's really about, of course, kicking in to the, as we say, the money stage of football, which is the knockout stages, and that's where Pep wants to be at his best.
Yeah, a quick word on Graham Potter's Chelsea before we go to the break, because they got a 2-1 win against Salzburg over there in Austria. Kai Havertz finding the back of the net and Kovacic with the opening goal. You get the sense that Potter is finding a way to get the best out of the talents at his disposal, although Aubameyang and Sterling continue to look like men who've stumbled upon football rather than looking like accomplished forwards in Europe.
You know, there's so much conversation about Potter not being ready for this Chelsea job because obviously he's not coached at this level, meaning a team that's supposed to be a Champions League knockout phase team, of course, a team that should finish high up the table in the Premiership. But what I've been impressed with him so far is his tactical acumen. He's been able to show a lot of flexibility in his approaches to the games and the way he set things up, and still been able to not only, of course, keep Chelsea competitive, but also make sure that they win football games or at least not lose. And I think, for me, a coach that, of course, that has that coming into a club like Chelsea, still showing, being brave enough to do that, is a testament to him. And I just wonder where Chelsea would be when we come to the money stage of the competition, when Graham Potter would have had more time with his players to, of course, figure out exactly how he wants to play.
Yeah, and anybody who doubts Potter's tactical acumen, just go back to that weekend game against Manchester United at Stamford Bridge. It was tactics against tactics. It was Eric Ten Hag strategizing to respond to the tactical change that Potter had made by withdrawing Cucurella in the first half and inserting Kovacic, and it was just chess. It was like a chess game watching that game. And so, yeah, tactics turn up for both those men. Stay where you are, Brent. We take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about several more results, including what happened over there in Portugal between your Juventus and Benfica, and of course PSG hitting 7 at the Parc des Princes in France.